Hi, and thanks for logging on to the Daily DVAR Halacha. And here's a brand new halacha for you, and it's for Monday, the 4th day of May. Here we go. Today we're just going to quickly discuss the laws of winnowing, and that's something that you're not allowed to do on Shabbos. It's one of the 39 malachas that are not allowed to be done on Shabbos or Yom Tov. And here's the basics of it. Winnowing was when they used to take something like a tray that would be holding something like grain, and they would throw the grain up into the air, and the wind would blow the chaff away from the grain, separating away the chaff and have the grain fall back down on that tray. And they could even do it repeatedly to make it more and more and more sifted. And that's the action of winnowing, and that's what you're not supposed to be doing on Shabbos. Now you might figure, okay, well, I don't think that's ever going to apply to me, but watch out, there are a few things that we're going to mention here which would make it possibly applicable to you. Please remember that the wind in winnowing doesn't have to be natural wind. It could even be artificial wind, like somebody blowing or a fan or something, and that could possibly still make it be considered winnowing. I'm going to tell you now about a very interesting Yerushalmi that is quoted in the Shulchan Aruch, and the Yerushalmi says that if a person were to spit into the wind would scatter the saliva, and that could be possibly considered winnowing, and therefore a person should not do that on Shabbos. Now, not a whole lot of poskim fully paskin and agree that we should follow this quote of the Yerushalmi, but they do say that anything that grows from the ground can fall under the category of winnowing. And you may have heard this concept before, even from me, and that is that people are called growing from the ground because we're nourished from a lot of foods that grow from the ground, and so our saliva is viewed as something that grows from the ground, and therefore, to be safe, since your saliva could be considered something that grows from the ground, in that regard, therefore you shouldn't be spitting into the wind on Shabbos, seriously, at least to try to be extra adherent to not possibly being guilty of that sin. Next thing, if a person wants to throw breadcrumbs from a height, and some of the wind would scatter some of the pieces of the crumbs as they fall, then that would be something that you should not be doing on Shabbos or Yom Tov, because it's sort of like an action of winnowing. If a person wants to pour water out of a window and have it, it will scatter a little bit in the wind, you won't be guilty of winnowing, and that's because the water is not considered growing from the ground. Mind you, if it's going to land on the grass, we've discussed in other formats that you're not supposed to be watering the grass. So you can pour water out onto pavement and not worry about it being scattered, but you still, because of other reasons like watering the grass, would not be able to pour out water onto grass on Shabbos or Yom Tov. The good news, and that is that spraying out of an aerosol can will not be winnowing at all, and it'll be totally allowed, and that's because it's not wind that's scattering it. It's something to do with how the aerosol can works, but that's not called wind, and therefore you wouldn't be guilty of winnowing when using an aerosol can. If you wanted to add water to a cold water vaporizer, which is basically continuing to spin, doesn't do anything different when you add the water to it, it just spins and spins and spins, and now some water will be flicked around by the something or other of the cold water vaporizer, you are allowed to add water to that on Shabbos or Yom Tov. But please note that, of course, you can't do this with a hot water one, because that could fall into the categories of things like cooking, which of course you're not allowed to be doing. But just as far as winnowing, you wouldn't be guilty of that if you poured water into a cold water vaporizer on Shabbos or Yom Tov. Thanks for logging on, and log on again tomorrow for more. Bye-bye.